I'm going to exercise my prerogative and deem it to be 5:30 so that we can save a minute or two. And I'll remind councillors to be succinct in their argument tonight because the game tonight. So we'll begin as we always do with the territorial acknowledgement. We respect and truly acknowledge that we are on Treaty 3 territory, the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and the Métis Nation. We give gratitude and honor to the ancestors, elders, and all Anishinaabe and Métis people for sharing their resources and knowledge with us. Councillors, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest, and if so, state the general nature thereof? Yes, Councillor Morrison.
I spoke with Integrity Commissioner David Bogosian today and advised that due to my employment with local tribal agency, that a legal obligation to recuse myself from AR-25-0933 in camera.
Okay. Noted. Any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 4, delegations and deputations. There are none. Item 5, presentations. There are none. Item 6, correspondence. Yes. We have a resolution put on by Councillor Brunetta regarding supporting North Bay on the NORDS pilot program. Councillor Brunetta, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, please, Your Worship. As you can see from the attached resolution from North Bay, the NORDS program, the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support Program, was introduced as a pilot program to help Northern Ontario municipalities address infrastructure pressures resulting from natural resource sector activities. So the motion from North Bay really talks about supporting this in becoming a permanent funding resource for municipalities. And it also talks about expanding the scope. So not just for natural resources, but for things like agriculture and other areas that may put pressures on northern municipalities. So I would like to present an oral motion which basically will echo the motion, the second attachment on your agenda from Shunya, basically just saying those two things.
Okay, and I just happen to have an oral motion here. I'll put it on the floor on behalf of Councillor Brunetta that Council support the Municipality of North Bay Resolution 2025-279 regarding the Northern Ontario Resource Development Support (NORDS) program. Are you moving that, Councillor Brunetta? Yes.
Sorry, I forgot to mention also that this program is something that we as a municipality have had access to in the past, and we get about $188,000 a year from NORDS.
And you're moving it?
Yes, I.
Can I get a seconder on that, please? Councillor Mackey, any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Thank you, Councillor Brunetta. Okay, moving on to item 7, council reports. My report is shorter than usual. I was out of town twice during the reporting period. I always give a written report, so I'm not going to read any parts of my report. If any councillors have questions, they're welcome to contact me. Moving on to you, Councillor Firth.
I just wanted to catch a few people up in the public that on October 3rd, Hometown Takeover Canada application to RTR Media's casting call for HGTV's Hometown Takeover Canada video submission and application was completed. I'd like to give a very big shout out to the Municipal Accommodation Tax Committee, many contributors and residents for all the help. And thanks again to the museum for such a quick turnaround on some of the props and pictures. As of now, we have over 76,000 views to our video, and it is a very strong bid. I hope that we can get some updates to the community in the near future. The off-leash dog park, we had our first meeting October 23rd. We've established that every second Wednesday of the month we'll be meeting. Our next meeting will be very exciting as we discuss and review potential locations. Townsend Theatre will have its first meeting since I've came to council, coming on October 30th, and I look forward to that. And for the BIA, a couple updates. The tree lighting is scheduled for November the 21st. Our intern will be putting out monthly newsletters with joint initiatives with the Chamber as well as the BIA, and we look forward to reading that monthly.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to speak to the Senior Center. So Attendance, first of all, this August and September versus last August and September, attendance has increased by approximately 20% on each of those months.
Wow.
And that's a great boom, I think, in that regard. Last week there was a volunteer appreciation night, and Councillor McTaggart's going to speak more to that. Over Christmas, we're going to be closed from Saturday, December 20th through till Sunday, January 4th. Give the volunteers a Christmas break. But on December 22nd, that Monday, some foolish councillor volunteered to cook Christmas dinner for all of the volunteers and spouses. Fortunately, Councillor McTaggart stepped up and volunteered to help that silly person, that being me, if you didn't get the drift of that. But I think they deserve it, and Councillor McTaggart and I will proudly feed them. Thank you.
They definitely deserve it. Councillor McTaggart?
Thank you. Just following up on Councillor Mackey's comment, on October 15th, the Sister Betty Kennedy Center held an appreciation for the many volunteers who work tirelessly to make the center a welcoming place for all who visit. I want to specifically thank our wine sommelier, Councillor Mackey, our head server, Wayne Allen, and I was the fortunate dishwasher. It was a fun evening for all the volunteers to really thank them for their efforts and the success of the center. On October 20th, the Rainy River District West OPP Detachment Board meeting was held at the Civic Center here at the committee room in the Civic Center. Work continues on our procedural bylaw, which we're hoping to pass at the next meeting. The detachment board is required to have an online presence in order for the public to access our documents, our minutes, our policies, and other items. And we looked at a Facebook page, and our administrator, Ellie Lewis, suggested we start with the Facebook page with the appropriate links for information. So this is the most cost effective, and we're going to start that way and monitor it, see how effective it is. The priorities for the 2026 to 2029 detachment business plan was discussed, and we have submitted some items that we felt strong about, and it'll be on the next board meeting as well. And I challenge council to think about this now, because you're going to be asked if you have priorities for that business plan that you'd like to see included, and that invitation will be coming. So just a heads up to administration and council that your input will be sought on that. The 2026 budget was discussed, and we've waiting for a couple of numbers to be finalized, and it'll be approved at our next meeting. And we received the detachment commander's September report. And I'll just very quickly, cruiser patrol, foot patrol, and school patrol hours were all up significantly from the same period in 2024. Violent crime calls were at the same as 2024, but year to date, they're down 9%, which is a fairly significant number. Property crime calls are almost down 40% for September and down 16% year to date. Drug crimes were the same for September as in 2024, but down 50% year to date. And other crimes and occurrences were down 39% for September and 5% year to date. Criminal code and provincial statute charges were down 28% and almost 10% year to date also. Our next meeting is scheduled for December the 15th here at the Civic Center. And I'll just note on November 13th, there will be an interview panel for the selection of the new detachment commander starting in January of 2026. And I have been approved to attend that interview panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McTaggart. We'll move to item 8, the consent agenda. We have 3 items this evening. Item 8.2 is the regular council meeting minutes, and the recommendation reads that council approve the regular council meeting minutes of October 14th, 2025 as presented. 8.3 deals with boards and committee meeting minutes, and the recommendation reads that the following boards and committees meeting minutes be received as information: the Downtown BIA minutes of August 13th, 2025, the Downtown BIA minutes of September 10th, 2025, and the Rainy River District West OPP Detachment Board minutes of September 22nd, 2025. And finally, 8.4 is the Quarter 3 Progress Report, and the recommendation reads: the council accept report AR-25-0928 titled Quarter 3 Progress Report as information. Councilors, would you like to pull any of those? Seeing none, I have a resolution. Resolution reads that council approve the consent agenda as follows: items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Morrison, Councilor Bernetta. Nobody pulled anything, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. No one was opposed. Okay, moving on to number 9, Administration and Finance Division reports. 9.1. This is to consolidate and update the health and safety policies, and the resolution I'll put on the floor is that council approve the consolidated and updated health and safety policy as presented, and that council direct administration to bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting of council for formal adoption of this updated policy. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Behan, Councilor Bernetta. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Moving on to 9.2, recommendation that I'll put on the floor reads that council approve the updated municipal and employee vehicles policy as presented, and the council direct administration to bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting of council for the formal adoption of the updated policy. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor McTaggart and Councilor Morrison. Any discussion, councilors? Councilor McTaggart?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of clarification. If I, as a councillor, were going to travel on behalf of the town, leaving very early the next morning, would I have to come to here and come to the Civic Center and get the car? Could I take it home the night before?
Madam Clerk.
Through the chair, yes. Yes, you could take the vehicle the night before.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilor Bernetta.
Just something that I remembered us speaking about some time ago. I think it may have been Manager Rob who indicated that some of the vehicles have like a tracking device in the vehicles. So I'm just wondering if anything needs to be in the policy in terms of advising staff when there is a tracking vehicle and how it will be used. And, you know, I'm just thinking about privacy rules and things like that. But I don't know if this is for Manager Rob or Mia.
You want to take this, Manager Rob?
Thank you, through the chair. We do have that within our corporate electronics policy. I can't think of what it's called right now. That does speak to the various ways which we track employees electronically. It does call out the use of GPS in some of our fleet. However, at this point in time, that is just our large equipment, and it's for snow removal tracking purposes.
Any further questions? Councilor Behan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Managers Mia. Under parking restrictions, it says to maintain accessibility and reduce congestion, municipal staff and vehicles are restricted from parking on Portage Avenue and Church Street during weekday business hours. And it says when parking in these areas during the week, a maximum duration of 30 minutes is permitted. Isn't that sort of contradictory?
Thank you, through the chair. It's just for the times when a staff member who's not based at the Civic Centre might be coming in for a meeting, okay, and it might just be a quick meeting. If it is for a meeting that's beyond 30 minutes, it is the expectation that they use the employee car park.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm just saying municipal and staff vehicles are restricted, so that would not apply to somebody that doesn't work at the Civic Center coming here. It just seems a little contradictory to me. That it says during the week a maximum duration of 30 minutes is permitted, but it says you can't. So So I guess that's where I'm a little confused.
Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this policy kind of takes into account how much availability we have, right? There's a decent amount of availability to allow 30 minutes won't hinder it. There are moments it doesn't specify. You might be parking it there to unload something, bring something in. It's kind of a balance. Now, you're right. If we want to restrict it, and that's the will of council to restrict it, we can take it out. But we see the benefit for short durations, and we don't think there's congestion enough to not allow that. So we feel that's a happy compromise before. But again, if we want a strict rule, because it does allow people to, 30 minutes becomes 40 minutes, becomes an hour, that's up to you if you really want to eliminate it. We just don't see the huge need to be overly strict on it.
I think Councillor Bean's concerned with the wording. Is that, yeah. So could we just fix that by putting in with the exception of?
That's what I'm getting at, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, maybe change that for restricted to unless otherwise allowed or something, just because.
Okay, so we'll make that change. Madam HR Manager, is that okay? And you're okay with that change?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that change then, councillors, any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, 9.3 deals with workplace harassment and violence policy, and the recommendation reads, the council approved the updated workplace harassment and violence policy as presented, and that council direct administration to bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting of council for the formal adoption of the updated policy. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Brunetta, Councillor Morrison. Any discussion on this one, councillors? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, moving on to 9.4. This is to create a workplace violence, health, and safety policy for the municipal airport. And I will put a resolution on the floor that reads that council approve the adoption of a new workplace violence, health, and safety policy for the municipal airport, and that council direct administration to bring forward a bylaw at the next meeting of a council for the formal adoption of the policy. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor McTaggart. Councillor Bean. Discussion, councillors? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Moving on to 9.5. This is the renewal of the municipal insurance policy for the 2025-2026 year, and the resolution that's coming on the floor is that the Council of the Town of Fort Frances approve report AR-25-0929 to accept the renewal offer received from Intact Public Entities, IPE, in the amount of $478,215 plus applicable taxes for municipal insurance and $5,651 plus applicable taxes for airport premises insurance for the 2025-2026 term, and further, that an authorizing bylaw be prepared authorizing mayor and clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the corporation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bean, Councillor Mackey. Questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Brunetta?
I noticed in the report there was some discussion about maybe increasing our deductibles. And I'm wondering if we might reconsider this because, you know, as Councillor Bean brought up in our last meeting of council around, you know, we're increasing user fees by about 2%. This is, you know, slightly more than that. So I'm just wondering if we could try and keep all of our increases to within, you know, a lower percentage, just so that we can manage that when it comes to setting our tax rate during our budget deliberations. I don't know if that's something, I know the clerk is, has recommended that we not increase the deductibles, but is it something we could consider?
Does somebody want to speak to this from administration? Madam Deputy Treasurer?
Through the chair. I can speak to it to the extent I don't have the amounts for this year. I did look into it last year, and the savings would be less than $10,000 to increase that. And that was why last year we chose not to. I don't know what percent that would work out. Maybe my treasurer, who's better at math in her head. I certainly can get those costs. I only got this actual renewal rate on Thursday last week, which is why I didn't ask for that, just because of the last minute. The insurance renews on November 1st, so I was kind of scrambling. But we certainly can look at that going forward. I think that's something that can be changed if that's what council so desires.
Councillor Brunetta, would you like us to get those costs?
Well, given the short time frame, I'm wondering if it's even possible to do it if it renews November 1st. So what you're saying is we can go ahead and renew it and then look at the deductibles later and adjust? Is that what you're suggesting?
Through
Go
the
ahead.
chair. My understanding is that, yes, we could make that change even mid-policy. We make other changes mid-term, like we add vehicles on, remove vehicles, that type of thing.
Right.
So I could get those costs. I think from the broker's perspective, IPE, our insurance company, has suggested that a municipality of our size should have a deductible of $25,000. They have agreed to leave it at 15, which is something that once you move it to 25, you're not ever going to get it back to 50. So that is something to consider. So I guess it's a risk that you take, right?
So I would like to look at those numbers, if you could put that together. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Treasurer?
Yes, through the chair. So I would also suggest, like, if we have one or two claims and increasing our deductible, you're going to pay what we're potentially saving, right? So you really want to be cautious because we can't control our claims.
So what's the will of council? Would you like to look at, would you like to approve it tonight and then get some information on what the numbers would be if we increase the deductible? Is that what I'm hearing? That's what I'm hearing from Councilor Brunetta. The rest of the councilors, can you give me a nod or something? Yeah, Councilor Bien?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask one further question before we get to that statement?
You may.
Thank you. Through you to Deputy Treasurer. The wording you have here, keep our deductibles low for as long as possible. I'm just curious what the longest possible threshold is where we would consider increasing them down the road.
Madam Deputy Treasurer.
What I meant by that was just what I just said. Once we increase it, it will be difficult to decrease it afterwards through the insurance company. So does that make sense?
Yes. For the question?
Questioning again
Yeah.
for you, Mr. Mayor, what the threshold would be where we would consider increasing it? Is there a figure that would say, hey, it's time to increase it? Or is it just, I'm guessing if there's a threshold where we get to that and when we decide that's the best way to go?
Comment?
Go
ahead.
Chair, I'm not really sure. I guess it would probably depend on the premium saved. Like I said, last year, I believe that the premium saved for that option one, increasing the property deductible, was about just under $8,000. So I think, I guess if the premium saved was big enough to make it worth the risk you're taking if you have multiple claims.
And I believe that's, sorry, I believe that's what Councilor Brunetta is getting at. So if council wishes, we can approve this evening and then direct administration to get those numbers and then make the decision if you want to increase the deductible. Is that okay? I'm getting some nods, so I'll call the question on that. So we'll pass the policy tonight, but we would like you to get some numbers for us, and then we can make that decision. Calling the question then, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Thank you for that discussion, councilors. Okay, moving on to 10, Community Service Division reports. There are none. Item 11, Planning and Development Division reports. We have two. 11.1, recommendation on the floor that council accept report AR-25-0923 and direct administration to proceed in providing information materials to the public through internal means as outlined in option 1, and that administration prepare a subsequent report in quarter 2 of 2026 outlining the effectiveness of option 1 and whether it would be beneficial to further undertake option 2. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, for this one? Councillor Firth and Councillor Bien. Discussion, councillors? Councillor Firth?
I just want to thank administration for bringing this back to us so quickly to start with. And then the second point is, after looking at both options, I kind of wonder if it would be best course of action to consider option 2, but also adding in resources with our future community improvement plan and any input our new EDO can add to that as well. Because I think that this kind of ties in really well with that as well. So I don't want us to rush and have to do this twice or 3 times. Maybe Mr. Burrows can comment on that, but I don't want to have to do this 2 or 3 times.
Did you want to make a comment, Chief Building Official?
Yes, and thank you. And through the chair, this is why we've proposed doing the option 1 with a reconsideration for option 2 in the future. We would like to proceed with putting out informational materials at this time, and we believe we could provide some brief informational materials that we can post on our social media at this time. Me and Samantha, our economic development officer, have already discussed having a conversation about this and putting together materials. But understanding that we will be proceeding with finalizing our official plan and zoning bylaw, as well as entering into procuring and developing a community improvement plan, it could be beneficial in the new year to proceed with option number 2 of actually having some well put together informational materials at a later time when we do have that updated information. But we don't see a reason to not entertain option number 1. So we recommend proceeding with option 1 at this time in Q2 of 2026, coming back to council with the results of proceeding with option number 1. And if that does facilitate the necessity to put together more developed informational material at that time with updates to those other policies.
Thank you, CBO Burrows. Back to you, Councillor Firth. Are you satisfied with that answer, or would you like to make an amendment to proceed with option 2? Okay. Any further discussion, councillors? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, 11.2. Recommendation reads that council receive report AR-25-0891 and direct administration to include option 1 and associated costs in the draft 2026 operating budget. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Firth and Councillor Mackey. Okay, councillors, discussion or comments? Councillor Brunetta.
Something else crossed my mind while I was reading this this particular agenda item. The municipality does own housing, and it's actually our nonprofit housing, and it is rent geared to income because we received a fairly large grant to build the 8 units that we currently have. The mortgage is actually going to be done in 2028. So it's not that far away. And at that time, the Nonprofit Housing Board and Council will have a decision to make in terms of whether we continue with a rent geared to income housing unit or whether we decide to end our RGI obligations and just we can then start filling the vacant units with market, market rent. So it's going to be a bit of a way in the future, and it's not going to address what we're talking about today, but it's something that perhaps we should keep in mind in the future in terms of moving forward with having some type of housing available for recruitment purposes.
Thank you, Councillor Brunetta. Further comments? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, moving on to agenda item 12, operations and facility division reports. 12.1 deals with the Woodward Storm Sewer Replacement, and the resolution that I'll put on the floor reads that council approval of report AR-25-0932 will agree with the recommendation of administration to agree to fund additional expenditures of $102,250 plus applicable taxes from the corporate projects reserve funds. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Morrison. Discussion, councillors. Seeing none. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, 12.2. This deals with the fire hall renovation. There's some additional expense. The recommendation that I'll put on the floor reads that council approval of report AR-25-0931 will agree with the recommendation of administration to agree to fund the additional expenditures of $58,000 plus applicable taxes from the corporate buildings reserve funds. Can I get a mover and seconder on this one, please? Councillor Behan, Councillor Bernetta. Discussion or comments or questions, councillors? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, item 12.3 is the Sister Kennedy Center parking expansion. The recommendation reads that council approval of report AR-22-0920 will agree with the recommendation of administration to bring updated pricing for the construction of a new sidewalk along Nelson Street from the municipal parking lot to Victoria Avenue, to the 2026 capital budget. Sorry about that. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Behan. Councillor Bernetta. Councillors, questions? Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is more a comment, I think, than a question. But when you look at the options, option one, you get 4 spots, but you lose 2, so you're doing a net gain of 2. That's a lot of money for 2 parking spots. And even option 2, up to $400,000, and that's just a preliminary estimate, not counting other design works that maybe affect that. So I'm in favor again of going back to the sidewalk idea. I think it's needed. And the $39,000, maybe it'll be less if we re-tender it for the part of the budget process in 2026. But I think that's a better option. It's not ideal. You know, when you have seniors having to go that distance from that lot to the senior center, I appreciate that in the wintertime and having to cross Victoria. But when you look at these prices, I think that looking at the sidewalk again is the most cost-effective option to accomplish what we want to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behan. Further questions? Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if another alternative parking arrangement could be sought or examined by administration, and that would be an entrance off of Victoria to the south of the senior center building with diagonal parking along the bush line that is on the south side of the property and exiting through the parking lot, the current parking lot. And I'm suggesting that with the moving of a couple of buildings and some creative thinking that we could probably pick up 7 or 8 or 9 parking spots. So I just like that to be a consideration. The other alternative is that we reconsider the parking on Victoria Avenue that was rejected earlier.
Just, would you like to amend this report to ask administration, in addition to bringing the sidewalk to the budget process, to look at reorganizing the parking with a view of diagonal parking to increase spaces?
I would, please. Thank you.
Okay. When would you like that report, Councillor McTaggart?
I'm going to ask administration what works for them.
Looking at you, Manager Rob.
Possibly the next council meeting. I'll hope to have it in November. I've already done the calculations. I just need
Okay, so-
to go back through it. So.
You can do that without undue strain on your brain?
I believe so. Like I said, I've already done the calculations, so I just need to go back and double check them. So.
You're a good engineer manager, Rob. Okay, so the recommendation reads what you have in front of you and added to that, and further to bring a report on the efficacy of diagonal parking back to council at the next council meeting. I need to get a mover and seconder on the amendment, Councillor McTaggart and Councillor Firth. On the amendment then, any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? That's carried. The main motion then reads what you have in front of you with the amendment and further to bring a report on the efficacy of diagonal parking back to council at the next meeting. Councillor Behan and Councillor Burnett, are you still okay with that resolution? Okay, any further discussion then on the main motion? Calling the main motion, all in favor? That's carried, no one was opposed. Thank you for that discussion. Thank you for that suggestion, Councillor McTaggart. 12.4 deal with amendments to the traffic control bylaw. The resolution that I'll put on the floor reads that council approval of report AR-25-0893 will agree with the recommendation of administration to amend the traffic control bylaw as outlined within this report to bring the Legion pedestrian crossover into compliance with the Ontario traffic manual requirements. Can I get a mover and seconder on this? Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Firth. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Bernetta.
I'm happy to see this report come forward. I know a lot of people have been asking about the crosswalk, and we did earlier pass the idea of painting the crosswalk, and I'm just wondering if once these changes are made, then can we move forward with painting the crosswalk?
Manager Rob.
Thank you through the chair. I'm just curious what painting you're talking about. We painted the crosswalk this summer. We paint it every year.
It's the decal that came to council not too long ago, you know, with the, I think it was red and white. Yeah, it was
Had some high
for Remembrance
visibility
Day.
markings on it.
Yeah, so the request from the Legion for that was for the 2026 season. So we're done painting for a long time for the year. So we're working on finding someone to make us some stencils and things related to that for next summer.
Okay. Councillor McTaggart.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarity, so making these changes, we will be able to put that Legion preferred decal in that location?
Manager Rob.
Thank you through the chair. Those two things are mutually exclusive. These changes we have to make because it's the requirement of the traffic manual. Can we put the stencil markings there? I don't have a 100% answer yet. We're doing some research on that as well in the background, but the two are unrelated.
Thank you.
Further questions, councillors? Okay, calling the question, all in favor? Carried, no one was opposed. Okay, we're moving right along. That brings us to bylaws. Recommendation I'll put on the floor is that the following bylaws be introduced and read, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with a corporate seal, and become law forthwith. There are 5 of them. Bylaw 74-25 is a service agreement with 2491570 Ontario Limited. Bylaw 75-25 is an easement agreement with the Township of Alberton. Bylaw 76-25 is to award tender 2025-OF-14. Bylaw 77-25 is an option agreement with Bridge Road Developments. And bylaw 78-25 is an option agreement with the Fort Francis Bess LP. Mover and seconder, please, on the bylaws. Councillor McTaggart, Councillor Morrison. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. I would like to point out that our deputy clerk wrote these bylaws in their entirety for the very first time. So well done, deputy clerk. Okay. Brings us to item 14, notice of motion or motion to reconsider. There's none. So item 15 is a closed session. And I'll put a resolution on the floor that council now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining for one potential option of additional lands for solar development. This falls under 239-2C, which is the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And 2 is the Agency 1 First Nations settlement costs. This falls under 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Firth, Councillor Behan. Calling the question, all in favor? It's carried, no one was opposed, so we are going into camera at 6:10. And for those of you who are observing at home, we are going into closed session now. At the conclusion of closed session, we'll return to open session and report. Thank you. Okay, Randy, we're back. So we met in closed session, and during closed session, we discussed 3 items, and as a result, 3 resolutions have come out of closed session. First resolution is that council approval of report AR-25-0927 will agree with the recommendation of administration to direct administration to further discussions with First Light on proceeding with an option agreement for the parcel of land as described in the report. And further, that council delegates the operations and facilities division manager to negotiate the terms of the option agreement on behalf of the corporation. Sorry, Councilor McTaggart. I need a mover and seconder. Councilor Firth and Councilor Bernetta. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Second resolution that came out of the closed session is the council approve report AR-25-0933 titled Agency 1 First Nations Settlement Costs, and that administration proceed with option 2 as directed by council. Can I get a mover and seconder on that? Councilor Mackey, Councilor Firth. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. Councilor Morrison had declared a conflict. And finally, out of the closed session, we have a recommendation that the closed meeting minutes of October 14th, 2025 be approved as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Behan, Councilor Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. No one was opposed. That brings us to the affirmatory bylaw. And that recommendation reads that bylaw 79-25 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Fort Francis be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Again, mover and seconder, please. Councilor Bernetta and Councilor Behan. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. No one was opposed. And finally, that having reached the hour of 7:21, this meeting of the Council of the Town of Fort Francis be now closed. Councilor McTaggart and Mackey. All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Thank you, councilors.